Hello, welcome back to Let's Play Jane's Fighters Anthology as we continue with these aircraft showcases. Today we will be showcasing another French aircraft, actually, the French Mirage F.1 or F1. I've seen it both ways, so I don't know which is the correctest way, but yeah, and you're, oh, no, there we go. We'll be doing that. We'll be simulating, the maps aren't really optimized for this, but we're going to be simulating, ooh, armored staging area, that works. We're going to be simulating basically a French peacekeeping action against some of their, in defense of one of their colonies or former colonies in Africa. We're using Iraq as the battleground just because. I think that will give us some friendly air bases to the south, unless there's a Kuwait map, which I don't think there is. No. So that is basically going to be the setup. We'll fight through 3 MiG-21s, and then we'll drop bombs on an armored staging area. And we'll say they're staging to, I don't know, overrun a village that they don't like or something. Anyways. Where are my bombity bomb bombs? One. We want a few more than that. Where's my 3-packs? Okay, I'm blind. There they are. Alright, so we'll be taking 9 500-pound bombs, as well as 4... Ooh, actually. Do we get... We'll take some rockeye cluster bombs. And then we have 3 packs of 3 500-pound bombs, 2 wingtip magic missiles, and an ALQ-167 jammer. So with that, let's hop in. Now, our wingmen are going to be of very limited endurance, so we're going to have to keep that in mind. There we go. So let's throttle up and engage. Alright, 1 down. Wingmen that can attack at will. We're actually pretty maneuverable considering all the ordnance we're carrying. Alright, I'm on his tail. Come on, come on. Yeah! Didn't quite knock him out, but... Booyah! Alright, that is all of the hostile aircraft, so we managed to fight our way through the MiGs, and now we just have to find the armored staging area, and I dare say we've found it, so we will be heading in. Let's see how dense it is. Probably not as dense as I'd like it, but... just as long as... oh, crap, where did they go? There we go. There they are. And we are almost over the target. So let's do a dive in. I see the, our wingmen are doing a pretty good job already. And have a pair of cluster bombs, you two. Looks like one of them's going to be a little off, but... Ooh. I'm impressed. We destroyed a T-90 and a T-80 with a direct hit from a cluster bomb, so that's kind of amusing for me, at least. Okay, we've got more tanks over here. Let's throttle up slightly so we can climb. There we go. Yeah, so definitely They are definitely more spread out than I was hoping they'd be, but that's fine. That's a smart thing to do. I can't fault them for that. There we go. And we can maintain altitude. My hope is the dispersion on the bombs nails both of those tanks, but I don't think that's going to happen. This is probably where clusters would have been better, but... Alright. We probably only have the one tank, because it looked like there was a T-72 next to him, and that's probably the only tank. No, I think I saw another T-72. Might be two of them left. That are mistaking some of these BMPs for T-72s and BTRs. Yeah, I gotta find that other tank. There we go. Anyone a tank? Oh, he's a tank. Alright, so let's climb, get to an optimal release altitude here. And we'll spin back around and nail this guy. Then we should have one pack of 500-pound bombs left after this, which I'm hoping, if this is the last guy on our mission objective, then we can have some fun by taking out that pack of trucks, but... There we go. I don't know where my wingmen are. They're supposed to be attacking tanks. Booyah! Now they're all Joker fuel. Oh, well, we have one more. We have one more pack. We can conduct another attack on our own. There we go. So let's select this guy next. Hopefully he's the last one, but I guess we'll see. Alright, he's targeting us, so we're going to push over into a dive. And it looks like there's two tanks here, so we're going to split the difference between them. And hope the dispersion on our bombs helps in it not looking that way. They are severely damaged, though, so we've got that going for us at least. Alright, we should be able to come around and finish them with our Defa cannons. And then hopefully these guys will be the last targets. Oh yeah, he's practically dead, so... Just don't shoot me down. Alright. Hey soldiers, how you doing? War crimes? What are those? Anyways. Alright. Lighting up. And in the riskiest move of my career. Whee! Oh. There we go. There we go. We ejected. That fucker actually shot me. Oh, man. Yeah, that's what I was afraid would happen. But, yep, took a tank shell through the window. And look at all these friendly soldiers who are ready to help me and take me into custody and not do anything to me, especially not after I just strafed their comrades. Yeah, this will go well. Howdy there, friends! Alright. Oh, that's fine. The Mirage is... Or the F1, I think, is pretty similar to the Mirage 3, and we did that, so I'm not going to be too bent out of shape there. So, in any case... Mirage F1 emerged from a series of design studies performed by French aircraft manufacturer Dassault Aviation. Having originally sought to develop a larger swept-wing derivative of the Mirage 3, which became the Mirage F2, to serve as a vertical takeoff and landing propulsion testbed akin to the Dassault Mirage 3B. However, it was soon recognized that the emerging design could function as a basis for a competent fighter as well. Both the Mirage F2 and a smaller derivative referred to the Mirage F3 received substantial attention from both Dassault and the French Air Force, the latter being interested in its adoption as a long-range fighter bomber as a stopgap measure prior to the adoption of the envisioned Angelo French variable geometry strike aircraft. Parallel with the Mirage F3 study, which was intended to serve as an interceptor aircraft, Dassault decided to study a single-seat derivative which featured the all-French Snecma Attar 9K50 turbojet engine. As a result of the cancellation of two major projects, the company's design team found themselves with a decreased workload. Accordingly, in mid-1964, Dassault decided to commence work on the smaller aircraft, subsequently designated as Mirage F1, with the intention of producing a successor to its Mirage 3 and Mirage 5 fighters. This work was performed under a government contract in anticipation of a potential French Air Force specification for an all-weather interceptor to succeed its fleet of Mirage 3C aircraft. Mirage F1 was a similar size to the delta-winged Mirage 3 and Mirage 5 and was powered by the same SNE CMA Attar engine as had been used in the larger Dassault Mirage 4. However, unlike its predecessors, it shared the layout of a swept wing mounted high on the fuselage and a conventional tail surface as used by the F2. Although it has a smaller wingspan than the Mirage 3, the Mirage F1 nevertheless proved to be superior to its predecessor, carrying more fuel while possessing a shorter takeoff run and superior maneuverability. On the 23rd of December 1966, the first prototype conducted its maiden flight. The first flight had been delayed due to a funding shortage affecting the overall program. During its fourth flight, the prototype was recorded as having attained a top speed in excess of Mach 2. On the 18th of May 1967, the first prototype was lost in an accident at DGA Essay en Vol Istres. The crash had resulted from a loss of control after encountering flutter, killing its pilot. Despite this misfortune, during late 1966, the Mirage F1 program was officially adopted by the French Air Force. Following a redesign period, on the 20th of March 1967, the second prototype performed its first flight. On the 26th of May 1967, an order for 3 Mirage F1 prototypes was placed, while the larger and more expensive Mirage F2 was formally abandoned. These 3 pre-service aircraft, along with a static structural test airframe, soon joined the test program. By late 1971, the construction of an initial batch of 85 production standard Mirage F1 had been authorized. In order to comply with the French Air Force's requirement for an all-weather interceptor, the first production Mirage F1C was equipped with a Thomson CSF Serrano 4 radar system. The later Serrano 4-1 version added a limited look-down capability. However, Mirage F1 pilots reported that the radar was prone to overheating, which reduced its efficiency. During May of 1973, the first deliveries to the French Air Force took place. The type entered squadron service with EC-2/30 Norman D. Neiman in December of that year. By October of 1971, the Mirage F1 was under production at both Dassault's Bordeaux facility and at Sabca's own plant in Belgium, work at the latter having been performed under an industrial arrangement associated to Belgium's order for 106 Mirage 5 aircraft. The 79 aircraft in the next production round were delivered during the period March 1977 to December of 1983. These were the Mirage F1C-200 version, which featured a fixed refueling probe which required an extension of the fuselage by 7 centimeters. The Dassault Mirage F1 was a single-engine fighter aircraft designed to function as both an interceptor aircraft and a ground attack platform. While officially developed for the French Air Force as an air defense aircraft, Dassault had placed considerable emphasis on developing the Mirage F1 for ground attack duties as a secondary role during its early design. Developed by the company to function as a successor to the successful Mirage 3 and Mirage 5 families, it drew heavily upon its predecessors as well, sharing the same fuselage as the Mirage 3 while adopting a considerably different wing configuration. Mirage F1 used a shoulder-mounted swept wing instead of the delta wing of the Mirage 3, which resulted in a more than 50% reduction in required runway lengths and increased fuel tankage for 40% greater combat range. The approach speed prior to landing is 25% less than the preceding Mirage 3E. According to Dassault, The negative performance impact associated with the increased thickness of Mirage F1's wing over the Mirage 3's counterpart had been offset by improvements made to the propulsion system. The wing is fitted with both double-slotted trailing edge flaps and full-span leading edge slats, the latter being automatically operated to reduce the aircraft's turn radius during combat. A key area of advancement on the Mirage F1 over its predecessors was in its onboard avionics. Thomson CSF Serrano 4 monopulse radar system, developed from the Serrano 2 unit installed in the Mirage 3E, serves as the main sensor. It operates in 3 different modes: air target acquisition and tracking, ground mapping, and terrain avoidance. The latter Serrano 4-1 model also provided for a limited lookdown capability. According to aerospace publication Flight International, the Serrano 4 radar was capable of detecting aerial targets at double the range of the earlier models. The standard production Mirage F1 was furnished with an instrument landing system, radar altimeter, UHF and VHF radio sets, tactical air navigation system, and a ground data link. Other avionics include an autopilot and yaw damper. The Mirage F1 was powered by a single SNE CMA ATAR 9K-50 turbojet engine, which was capable of providing roughly 7 tons force or 69 kilonewtons of thrust, giving the aircraft a maximum speed of 1,453 miles per hour and an altitude ceiling of 65,615 feet. Flight International described the ATAR engine as being unexpectedly simple despite the adoption of an afterburner. An improved engine, initially known as the Super ATAR and later as the SNECMA M53, was intended to be eventually adopted on production Mirage F1 aircraft as well as for successor aircraft. The initial armament of the Mirage F1 was a pair of internal 30mm cannons and a single Matra R530 medium-range air-to-air missile, which was carried under the fuselage. It could carry a total combined payload of 13,889 pounds of bombs and missiles, all of which could be carried externally. After 1979, the medium-range R530 was replaced by the improved Matra Super 530F missile, as the latter came into service in quantity with the French Air Force. In 1977, the R550 Magic was released, which the Mirage F1 mounted on wingtip rails. Around the same time, the American AIM-9 Sidewinder was also introduced to the Mirage F1's armament. Both the Spanish and Hellenic Air Forces had requested the integration of the Sidewinder upon their own Mirage F1CE and Mirage F1CG fighters. During 1984, the first operational deployment to be performed by the French Air Force Mirage F1s was conducted during Operation Manta, the French intervention in Chad to counteract the growing Libyan encroachment in the region. A force of 4 Mirage F1C-200s provided air cover for a further group of 4 Jaguar strike aircraft. They also participated in a number of skirmishes against the pro-Libyan Transitional Government and National Unity rebels. In 1986, French Mirage F1s were redeployed to Chad as part of Operation Epervier. A flight of 4 F1C-200s provided fighter cover for a strike package of 8 Jaguars during the air raid against the Libyan air base at Wadi Doum on the 16th of February. A pair of F1CRs also conducted pre- and post-strike reconnaissance missions. In response to the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, France performed 2 deployments of Mirage F1s to the Persian Gulf. In October 1990, 12 Mirage F1Cs were dispatched to Doha, Qatar, in order to boost air defenses, while further Mirage F1CR of ER-33 were deployed to Saudi Arabia as part of Operation Doggett in September of 1990. To avoid the risk of being mistaken for hostile Iraqi Mirage F1s, all of the French F1CRs were grounded during the first few days of the Allied air attacks, flying their first combat mission on 26 January 1991. An additional reason for their initial grounding was the lack of compatible night vision equipment. They were used in the fighter-bomber role, using their more capable navigation systems to lead formations of French Jaguar fighter-bombers, as well as to fly reconnaissance missions. In this capacity, 114 sorties had been flown by the end of hostilities. Following the end of the Gulf War, France deployed a number of Mirage F1CRs to bases in neighboring Turkey as part of Operation Provide Comfort, protect Kurds from Iraqi aggression. In October 2007, 3 Mirage 2000s and 3 Mirage F1s were deployed at Kandahar Air Force Base, where they flew close air support and tactical reconnaissance missions in support of international forces in southern Afghanistan. The last French unit to be equipped with the Mirage F1 was the Escadron de Reconnaissance 233 Savoy, home-based at Mont de Marsan, which flew the latest version of the F1CR. The unit's primary mission was tactical reconnaissance with a secondary mission of ground attack. Because of the unique missions of the 233rd, their unofficial motto among the pilots had become find, identify, and photograph or destroy. In accordance with a bilateral defense agreement between France and Chad, a pair of 233 F1CRs, along with 3 pilots, a photo interpreter, an intelligence officer, and ground crews, were always deployed to N'Djamena, Chad. The 233 F1CRs operated with 3 Mirage 2000Ds, also based on rotation from France to Chad. During March of 2011, 233 Mirage F1CRs were deployed to Salenzara Air Base, Corsica, and conducted reconnaissance missions over Libya as part of Operation Harmattan. In 2013, 233 F1CRs also participated in Operation Serval in Mali. On the 10th of January, launching from their base in N'Djamena in Chad, the first French air intervention mission against Islamist rebels in Mali was undertaken by F1CRs and Mirage 2000Ds, supported by a French Air Force C-135 tanker. The 233 F1CRs provided valuable photo information for strike aircraft flying the next day from France. Later, on 16th of January, 233 F1CRs were deployed from Chad to Bamako, Mali. Both aircraft were fitted with extra long-range 2,200-liter ventral tanks, and when operating over Mali, also carried 2 250-kilogram unguided bombs, plus their internal 30mm cannons, in case they were called on for close air support. In order to replace the elderly F1CRs of ER-233, a number of Rafales were outfitted with an advanced reconnaissance pod. The Rafale's range, maneuverability, and combat load is far superior to the F1CR that it replaces, as well as its reconnaissance capabilities. After the Rafale's pod has taken photographs, these can be almost instantly transmitted back to its base or where the imagery would be required if provisioned with a compatible downlink equipment. French Air Force's last Mirage F1 fighters were retired from operational service on the 13th of June 2014. Last units in service, these being 11 single-seat Mirage F1CRs and 3 two-seat F1Bs, were transferred to storage. 6 aircraft performed the final appearance in a flypast during Bastille Day celebrations over Paris prior to their disposal. Between 1979 and 1980, Ecuador received 16 F1JAs, a variant of the F1E, and a pair of F1JEs. The Ecuadorian Air Force's Squadron Mirage F1JAs went into action in January and February 1981 during the brief Paquisha War between Ecuador and Peru, and less than 2 years after the aircraft had been delivered to the Ecuadorian Air Force. At the time, the Ecuadorians decided against directly challenging the Peruvian Air Force, whose Mirage 5Ps and Sukhoi Su-22s were providing air cover to Peruvian heliborne operations within the combat zone. Instead, the Mirages were kept at a distance, performing combat air patrols on the fringes of the combat area in case the border clashes escalated into wider hostilities. During one incident, a Peruvian Sukhoi Su-22 was intercepted and a single air-to-air R-550 missile was launched. However, it failed to strike the Peruvian aircraft. In 1995, during the Senegal War, the Ecuadorian Mirages went back into action against Peru. This time, while the bulk of the squadron was kept back at Tora Air Force Base, a small detachment, the Mirage F1s and Kiefer C-2s, were deployed to undisclosed forward air bases to dissuade Peruvian attack aircraft from entering the combat zone. By this time, the planes had been upgraded with Israeli electronics and Python Mark III air-to-air missiles, usually mounted on the outer underwing pylons, and Matra R-550 Magic air-to-air missiles on wingtip launch rails. On the 10th of February 1995, a pair of Mirage F1JAs, piloted by Major Raul Banderas and Captain Carlos Uzcategui, were directed over 5 targets approaching the combat zone in the Cenepa Valley. After making visual contact, the Mirages fired their missiles, claiming 2 Peruvian Su-22Ms shot down, while Kiefer claimed a further A-37B Dragonfly. Sources in Peru, however, deny the claim that the Sukhoi Su-22s were shot down by Ecuadorian aircraft, saying that one was shot down by Ecuadorian anti-aircraft artillery fire during a low-flying ground attack mission, while the second was lost because of an engine fire. Banderas served as commander of the Ecuadorian Air Force between May 2014 and February 2016, while Uzcategui died in a training accident in 2002 at Salinas Air Base in the Santa Elena province. In 2011, all the remaining Ecuadorian Mirage F1s still in service were retired after having flown more than 33,000 flight hours during their 32 years in active service. They were replaced by a squadron of Atlas Cheetah fighters bought from South Africa. Greece operated 40 Dassault Mirage F1 CG single-seat fighters. The F1 CG was first ordered in 1974 and entered service with the Hellenic Air Force in 1975. The aircraft were used by 334 Squadron and 342 Squadron. Mirage F1 CGs were armed with the AIM-9P missile rather than the more commonly used R-550 Magic, and could carry 4 AIM-9Ps rather than just 2. The Hellenic Air Force retired the remaining 27 Mirage F1 CGs on 30th of June 2003 after 28 years of service and 160,000 flying hours. A number of F1 CG aircraft have been preserved, permanently grounded for display. At least 4 are preserved in Tanagra, Greece, and 1 more is preserved at the Hellenic Air Force History Department in Delta File Room. Starting in 1977 and continuing through the 1980s, Iraq placed several orders for Mirage F1s. Although the first version, designated as the Mirage F1 EQ, was quite similar to the original French Mirage F1C, those developed subsequently were increasingly modified with custom-tailored equipment, notably in the field of electronic warfare, according to the Iraqis' wishes. During this period, France was a major supplier of military equipment to the nation. In 1983, the former loaned 5 Super Etendards to Iraq, while the latter was awaiting the delivery of the Exocet-capable Mirage F1 EQ-5, which wouldn't be available until September of 1984. The Super Extender had been strongly advocated for by Dassault, who had feared the potential cancellation of the sizable Mirage F1 order by the Iraqi government if the request was not granted. From 1983 onwards, Iraqi Mirage F1s were also used for ground attack. In this role, the Mirage F1 was used to replace Iraq's aging fleet of Hawker Hunters. In September of 1985, an agreement was signed between Dassault and Iraq for delivery of a further 24 aircraft consisting of 18 Mirage F1 EQ-6 fighters and 6 F1 BQ trainers. During the Iran-Iraq War, Iraq's Mirage F1 EQs were used intensively for interception, ground attack, and anti-shipping missions. Mirage F1 EQ allowed for Iraqi strikes to be conducted over a greater combat radius into Iran than had been previously possible. In November 1981, an Iraqi Mirage F1 accounted for the first Iranian F-14 Tomcat to be shot down, followed by several more in the following months, giving the previously timid Iraqi Air Force new confidence in air-to-air combat engagements with the Iranians. According to research by journalist Tom Cooper, during the war, 33 Iraqi Mirage F1s were shot down by Iranian F-14s, and 2 were down by Iranian F-4 Phantom II units. Iraqi F-1 EQs claimed at least 35 Iranian aircraft, mostly F-4s and Northrop F-5E Tiger IIs, but also several F-14 Tomcats. On 14th September 1983, a pair of Turkish Air Force F-100F Super Sabre fighter jets of 182 Filo Etmika penetrated Iraqi airspace. Mirage F-1 EQ of the Iraqi Air Force intercepted the flight and fired a Super 530 F-1 missile at them. One of the Turkish fighter jets was shot down and crashed in Zakho Valley near the Turkish-Iraqi border. The plane's pilots reportedly survived the crash and were returned to Turkey. The incident was not made public by either side, although some details surfaced in later years. The incident was revealed in 2012 by Turkish Defense Minister İsmet Yılmaz in response to a parliamentary question by the Republican People's Party MP Metin Lufti Baydar in the aftermath of the downing of a Turkish F-4 Phantom II in Syria in 2012. On the 17th of May 1987, an Iraqi Mirage F-1 fired a pair of Exocet missiles at the United States Navy warship USS Stark as it patrolled in the Persian Gulf, causing extensive damage to the ship, killing 37 and wounding 21 members of the Stark's crew. The exact motive and orders of the pilot remain unclear, although Iraq later apologized for the attack, referring to the incident as a mistake and blaming Iran. It is worth noting, though, that I do believe that Iraq also awarded medals to the pilots who conducted the attack on the Star, so take that as you will. Prior to the outbreak of the 1991 Gulf War, the Mirage F1EQ was the second most numerous type operated by the Iraqi Air Force, behind the MiG-21. On the 17th of January 1991, during the opening minutes of the conflict, an unarmed United States Air Force EF-111, crewed by Captain James A. Denton and Captain Brent D. Brandon, scored a kill against an Iraqi Mirage F-1EQ, which they managed to maneuver into the ground, making it the only F-111 to achieve an aerial victory over another aircraft. Later in the war, an Iraqi Mirage, piloted by Captain Nafi al-Jabouri, successfully downed an American EF-111 Raven through aerial maneuvering as it crashed while attempting to avoid a missile fired by al-Jabouri. Coalition forces shot down several Iraqi F-1s during the Gulf War, such as 6 F-1EQs that were shot down by United States Air Force F-15 Eagles. A pair of F-1EQs, which were preparing to carry out an attack on the Saudi oil facilities, were shot down by a Royal Saudi Air Force F-15C. Of a pre-conflict force of 88 Mirage F-1EQs, 23 were destroyed in the war, a further 6 were damaged, and 24 were flown to Iran and interned. Only 23 aircraft remained in service by the end of the Gulf War. Of the 23 destroyed Iraqi Mirage F-1EQs, 9 were claimed to have been destroyed in aerial combat. In December of 1975, Morocco ordered 25 Mirage F-1CH interceptors. In March of 1977, an additional contract was signed, stipulating the delivery of 5 additional Mirage F-1CHs, as well as 20 Mirage F-1EHs. The first deliveries to the Royal Moroccan Air Force took place in 1978. Moroccan Mirage F-1s flew with 3 squadrons, Assad and Atlas, which were multi-role units, and Iguador, a specialized reconnaissance squadron. Comprising over a third of its fighter force, the Mirage F-1 served as primary air defense fighter of the Royal Moroccan Air Force for the next 2 decades. Starting in October of 1979, these aircraft were engaged in combat missions against the forces of Polisario Front operating in the Western Sahara. During their early combat operations, Moroccan Mirage F-1s used unguided bombs, rockets, and their internal cannons to attack Polisario targets. In November 1979, the first Moroccan Mirage F-1 was shot down by a Polisario 9K-31 Strela 1, and its pilot was killed. Another one was shot down by an SA-7 on the 6th of December, and 2 more followed in February 1980. With the losses to Polisario air defenses mounting, Moroccan pilots started using toss-bombing tactics to minimize their exposure to air defenses that had meanwhile been reinforced with 2 K-12 Hub SA-6 medium-range SAM systems. Using this technique in early January 1982, Moroccan Mirages even started attacking SA-6 sites. However, the strikes had very poor results due to the inaccuracy of this technique. Moreover, the soft sand of the Sahara Desert caused a lot of the bombs to fail to detonate. To solve these issues, several measures were taken. The Moroccans started using bombs equipped with daisy cutter fuses, and later South African-made Jupiter airburst fuses. Moroccan Mirages also started operating in hunter-killer teams, with 1 aircraft fitted with long-range cameras and/or ESM equipment, guiding 1 or 2 low-flying Mirage F-1s to attack the targets if detected. These tactics proved highly successful, and they became the principal way in which the Moroccan Mirages operated for the remainder of the war. Moreover, the aircraft were modified with chaff and flare dispensers. Lastly, ECM pods were bought to increase the aircraft's survivability against SA-6s, and the first were delivered in 1983. All this, combined with better training of the Moroccan pilots, including during joint exercises with the French and the Americans, resulted in much improved effectiveness of operations against Polisario forces. In total, over the course of the war in Western Sahara, 12 Mirage F-1s were shot down by the Polisario. 4 pilots were killed and 5 were taken prisoner. On the 17th of August 2015, a Moroccan Mirage F-1 crashed due to a bird strike, however its pilot ejected safely. During 1971, South Africa commenced its search for a replacement for the Mirage 3. As a result, it chose to purchase a license to manufacture both the Mirage F1 and its engine, with the intention of producing up to 100 Mirage F1s. However, this license was quickly cancelled as a consequence of the impending 1977 arms embargo. South African Air Force proceeded to procure 60 Mirage F1CZs and 32 Mirage F1AZs, which were quickly delivered by Dassault prior to the embargo being implemented, the first of these deliveries occurring in 1975. Both the F1CZ and F1AZ variants of the South African Air Force saw considerable action during operations in the border war. In November 1978, the first 5 F1CZs were deployed to Southwest Africa, tasked with providing escort for reconnaissance flights over southern Angola. From 1980, such deployments as escort aircraft became regular. Due to teething problems with the F1AZ and F1CZs were initially assigned the strike role in southern Angola using Matra M155 rocket pods or 250 kilogram bombs. F1CZs, a 3-squadron, downed 2 Angolan MiG-21s in 1981 and 1982. On the 6th of December 1981, during Operation Daisy, 2 F1CZs were vectored by GCI to intercept 2 MiG-21s heading south. Major John Rankin shot down the wingman with cannon fire as the missiles failed to lock onto the MiGs. On the 5th of October 1982, while escorting a Canberra of 12 Squadron on a photo reconnaissance sortie, Rankin and his wingman engaged 2 MiG-21s on an intercept course. He fired 2 Magic air-to-air missiles at one of the MiGs, damaging the aircraft with the second missile. Rankin then attacked the second MiG and destroyed it with cannon fire. The first MiG was able to return to base, but sustained additional damage, making a belly landing. In May of 1982, an Angolan Mi-8 helicopter that the SADF believed to be carrying senior officials was located and destroyed in the Kuvula area. The helicopter was located with rotors running on the ground by a pair of F1CZs and destroyed by 30mm cannon fire. 2 F1AZs of 1st Squadron were lost over Angola on the 20th of February 1988 while flying an interdiction sortie in F1AZ-245 against a road convoy during Operation Hooper. Major Ed Everett was shot down by an SA-13 Gopher Sam. F1AZ-223 was lost almost a month later, on the 19th of March, when Captain Willie von Copenhagen flew into the ground while returning from a diversionary strike at night. An SAAF Board of Inquiry was unable to determine the causes of the crash. 2 F1AZs and an F1CZ were also damaged by enemy action but were able to return to base. On the 7th of June 1980, while attacking Swapel's Tobias Hanako training camp during Operation Skeptic, Major Franz Pretorius and Captain I.C. Duplessis were both hit by SA-3 Goa SAMs. The aircraft, piloted by Duplessis, was hit in a fuel line and he had to perform a dead stick landing at Air Force Base Ondangwa. Pretorius' aircraft sustained heavier damage and had to divert to Ruacana forward airstrip, where he landed with only the main undercarriage extended. Both aircraft were repaired and returned to service. During the last phase of the Bush War, 683 combat sorties were flown by the F1AZs and more than 100 SAMs were fired at them. On the 27th of September 1987, during Operation Modular, an attempt was mounted to intercept 2 Cuban FAR MiG-23 MLs. Captain Arthur Piercy's F1CZ was damaged by either an AA-7 Apex or AA-8 Aphid air-to-air missile fired head-on by Major Alberto Le Rivas. The explosion destroyed the aircraft's drag chute and damaged the hydraulics. Piercy was able to recover to the Air Force Base Rundu, but the aircraft overshot the runway. The impact with the rough terrain caused Piercy's ejection seat to fire, failed to separate from the seat, and suffered major spinal injuries. In February 1987, 3 F1AZs fired several V-3B missiles at a group of MiG-23s without success. This was repeated again in February 1988 when an F1AZ fired a missile at a MiG-23 and fired its 30mm cannon, again without success. Various other unsuccessful attempts were made during the 1987 and 1988 period. Apart from operations from Nambia in July of 1981, a pilot of the Mozambican Air Force defected with his MiG-17. He flew from his base near Maputo towards South Africa. 2 F1AZs returning from a training exercise intercepted the MiG-17. In March of 1981, 2 F1AZs intercepted a Zimbabwean Army CASA C-212 and forced it to land in South Africa, after asserting that the aircraft had strayed into South African airspace. The South African Air Force lost an additional 6 F1AZs and 3 F1CZs to various mishaps. F1CZ-205 caught fire after landing and was repaired using the tail section of F1CZ-206. In June of 1975, with tension growing with Morocco, Spain decided to strengthen its air force and bought 15 Mirage F1Cs that were allocated to Al-Bakiti Air Base. In mid-1976, there was still some tension with Morocco and Algerian and Libyan MiG-25 flights on the Mediterranean, which would lead the Spanish Air Force to purchase 10 more Mirage F1C, and 2 years later order 48 Mirage F1C and F1Es. Some years later, Spain also bought 12 F1 EDAs and DDAs retired from the Qatar Air Force, which donated some equipment and weapons used by those Mirage F1s. In Spanish service, the F1C was known as the C-14A, the F1E was the C-14B, and the two-seater F1 EDA was the C-14C. They served mainly as Spain's primary air defense interceptors, interdiction as a secondary role until they were superseded by Spain's EF-18A Hornets. They served with the 11th Wing in Manises, the 14th Wing in Albacete, and the 46th Wing at Gando in the Canary Islands. The 46th Wing used their Mirage F1s mainly as air defense planes, using the same deep blue color pattern as French planes. In October of 1996, Thompson CSF was awarded $96 million to upgrade 48 of the F1CE single-seaters and 4 of the F1ED trainers up to the Mirage F1M standard. Ex-Qatar Mirage F1s were left outside the upgrade as it was a different version and were the first ones to be retired. As well as service life extension, this improved the avionics and added anti-shipping capability with a modernized Serrano 4M radar and exocet capability. From July 2006 to November 2006, Spanish Mirage F1s were deployed to Lithuania as part of NATO's Baltic Air Policing mission. During this deployment, they were scrambled twice to intercept undisclosed intruders. On the 20th of January 2009, a pair of Spanish F1s from the 14th Wing crashed near their base during a routine Spanish Air Force dogfight training mission, resulting in the deaths of all 3 crew members. The wreckage of the 2 jets, including the remains of the aircrew, was found about 3 kilometers apart. By 2009, there were 38 F1Ms in service, with Esquadron 141 Patanis and Esquadron 142 Tigres of all 14. In 2013, the Spanish Air Force retired its fleet of Mirage F1s, having progressively phased the type out of service as increasing numbers of the Eurofighter Typhoon had become available. During 2013, it was reported that Spain may sell 16 F1Ms to Argentina, but it seems they now have the budget to buy new Kiefers instead. The deal went through and Argentina bought the Spanish Mirages in October 2013, but the deal was scrapped in March 2014 after pressure from the United Kingdom on Spain to not assist the Argentinian Air Force in modernization over tensions between the countries over the Falkland Islands. In November 2017, Drake International announced that it acquired 22 F1Ms from Spain and would refurbish and upgrade them for use as adversary aircraft. And finally, Libya. Libya procured 16 Mirage F1ED interceptors, 6 F1BD two-seaters, and 16 Mirage F1ADs to equip the Libyan Air Force. The F1AD model is a specialized strike variant that lacks a standard radar unit. It is instead outfitted with a retractable fuel probe mounted on the nose. 4 F1ADs were subsequently upgraded into a multi-role configuration. Throughout the day of 18th of August 1981, a total of 70 Libyan aircraft, including McCoy and Gurevich MiG-23s, MiG-25s, Sukhoi SC-22s, and SC-22Ms, as well as Mirage F1s, approached the U.S. Navy carrier battle group as a show of strength. They were escorted until their withdrawal from its vicinity by McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom IIs and Grumman F-14 Tomcats. Even though they weren't involved continuously, Libyan Mirage F1s participated in the war in Chad intensively and proved their worth during the Libyan campaigns throughout the 1980s. From 1981, a detachment was deployed at Martin Es Serra in southeastern Libya. Both the F1AD and F1ED versions were used in this war. Even though the Mirage F1ED was designed foremost as an interceptor, it was mainly used for ground attack purposes like the F1AD, although some combat air patrols were flown as well. When operating in Chad, the Mirage F1AD's typical combat configuration consisted of a pair of 1,300-liter drop tanks and a pair of below-gust CVUs. Operations were performed almost exclusively during daylight hours and from high altitudes, which resulted in limited effectiveness. Together with Mirage 5s, MiG-23s, and Sukhoi Su-22s, Mirage F1s were instrumental in the success enjoyed during different campaigns against Chadian troops in the early 1980s. Operating over the open and barren desert terrain, they caused heavy damage for no Mirage F1 losses in return. Both Libyan Mirage F1 squadrons were staffed by some of the best pilots and officers in the Air Force, and the Libyans put extra care in the maintenance of these aircraft. Indeed, U.S. Navy pilots involved in the 1981 encounters with Libyan fighters concluded that the Mirage F1 pilots were markedly superior to those flying Soviet-made aircraft. The Mirage F1 fleet saw action during the 2011 Libyan Civil War. The Libyan Air Force posed little threat to coalition forces, partially as a result of insufficient equipment and a heavy reliance upon older aircraft acquired from the Soviet Union, but remained effective against poorly armed anti-Gaddafi rebels. On the 21st of February 2011, a pair of Libyan aircraft landed in Malta after they had been ordered to bomb protesters in Benghazi. Both of the pilots claimed political asylum. Following the death of Muammar Gaddafi and the end of the Civil War, France and Libya formed an agreement in 2012 to modernize the remaining Mirage F1 fleet, as well as covering the potential purchase of additional Mirage F1s that had been formerly operated by the French Air Force. There are a number of variants in the Mirage F1 family, starting with the Mirage F1A, which was a single-seat ground attack fighter aircraft fitted with limited daylight-only air-to-air capability, and fitted with lightweight EMD Eta-2 ranging radar instead of the Serrano 4 or later variants with laser rangefinder under the nose and a retractable refueling probe and more fuel. Subvariants include the Mirage F1AD for Libya and the Mirage F1AZ for South Africa. The French Air Force also ordered 20 Mirage F1Bs as a two-seat operational conversion trainer. These were delivered between October of 1980 and March of 1983. The extra seat and controls added only 12 inches to the length of the fuselage, but at the cost of less internal fuel capacity and the loss of the internal cannons. The empty weight also increased by 200 kilograms, partly due to the addition of two Martin Baker Mark 10-00 ejection seats in place of the Mark IV used in the F1C, which had a forward speed limitation. In all other aspects, the F1B is a combat-capable aircraft, and it can compensate for lost capacity with cannon pods and drop tanks. Variants of the F1B include the F1BD for Libya, the F1BE for Spain, the F1BJ for Jordan, the F1BK for Kuwait, the F1BK2 for Kuwait as well, and the F1BQ for Iraq. Mirage F1C was an interceptor version for the French Air Force, and the F1C-200 was an F1C fitted with a refueling probe. Subvariants include the F1CE for Spain, the F1CG for Greece, the F1CH for Morocco, the F1CJ for Jordan, the F1CK for Kuwait, the F1CK2 for Kuwait, the F1CR, a tactical reconnaissance version for the French Air Force that was bought to replace the Mirage 3R, the Mirage F1CT, which was an upgraded F1C-200 for the French Air Force, but to replace it in the close air support role, Mirage F1CZ, an export version for South Africa, and the Mirage F1ED, an export version for Libya. A two-seat training version based on the Mirage F1E was designated the Mirage F1D, of which two were exported to Qatar as the F1BDA. Mirage F1E was a single-seat all-weather multi-role fighter and ground attack with avionics upgrades compared to the earlier versions. Export versions included the Mirage F1JA for Ecuador, the F1EE for Spain, the F1EH for Morocco, the F1EH-200 for Morocco with an in-flight refueling probe, the F1EJ for Jordan, the F1EQ for Iraq, the F1EQ-2 also for Iraq, the F1EQ-4 also for Iraq with added reconnaissance capability, the F1EQ-5 also for Iraq and the first one capable of firing the Exocet weapon thanks to the new Serrano 4QC5 radar, and also capable of using laser-guided munitions. The F1EQ-6, another version for Iraq, with a new Sherlock digital RWR, new Serrano 4 SP1 radar, and capable of carrying two Exocet missiles, and the Mirage F1 EDA for Qatar. When it was clear that the Mirage F1 was becoming a successful production aircraft, Dassault began investigating the possibility of a dedicated reconnaissance version for its most important client, the French Air Force. However, the escalating cost of fighter aircraft meant that the add-on pods for this purpose were a more economical alternative. Many French Air Force aircraft, as well as those of some export clients, did indeed have a variety of reconnaissance pods available, which were attached to the underside of the main fuselage. However, the development of a tactical reconnaissance aircraft for the French Air Force continued, and the first Mirage F1 CR flew on the 20th of November 1981. It carries a lot of reconnaissance equipment compared to the strap-on pods of the other aircraft, including a SAT SCM 2400 Super Cyclope infrared line scan unit installed in space previously occupied by the port cannon. Space under the nose can be used for a Thompson TRT-40 panoramic camera or TRT-33 vertical camera. The Serrano 4MR radar has extra ground and contour mapping modes. A variety of sensors can still be carried in external pods under the fuselage, including the Raphael TH side-looking airborne radar, the Aztec ELINT pod, and the RP-35P optical reconnaissance pod. A total of 64 were ordered by the French Air Force, and they were seconded to Squadron de Reconnaissance 233. Mirage F1 CT is a ground attack version of the Mirage F1 C200. Following the replacement in the air defense role by the Mirage 2000, the French Air Force had a number of surplus Mirage F1 C200s. So in 1988, it launched a conversion program that turned them into an interim ground attack aircraft to replace the even more elderly Mirage 3Es and Mirage 5s. They brought them up, the CT program brought them up to the avionics standard of the F1 CR, with the radar upgraded with additional air-to-ground modes of the Serrano 4MR, as well as an improved navigation attack system fitted with a laser rangefinder under the nose. It was fitted with the new Mark 10 injection seats, well-improved radar detection and warning devices, chaff and flare dispensers, and secure radios were also added. It gained the ability to carry a variety of air-to-ground weapons, including rockets, cluster bombs, and laser-guided bombs, while retaining the F1C's air-to-air armor. Two prototypes were converted by Dassault, the first flying on the 3rd of May 1991, with a further 55 converted by the workshops of the French Air Force at Clermont-Ferrand by 1995. The South African Air Force, well, that's just a rehash, okay. And that's, there's a few other variants. South African Air Force modified their AZ and CZ variants before they got embargoed. The Mirage F1 M53 was developed for participation in the European NATO fighter competition of the early 70s, seeking to replace the F104G. However, it failed and lost out to the General Dynamics F-16. It did come in second place, however. Mirage F1M is upgrade applied to the 48 Spanish aircraft, as previously mentioned, and there was the Mirage F1 MF2000, which is a Moroccan upgrade program that includes replacement of the old Serrano 4 radar by an RC400 radar based on that used by the Mirage 2005, a revised cockpit, and improved armament with Damocles targeting pods, Mika air-to-air missiles, and AASM guided bombs added. The upgrade is being performed by ASTRAC, Association Sagam Theos pour la Rénovation des Avions de Combat. And the Mirage F1 has been operated by 14 air forces, of which only 5 continue to operate them. Current operators include the Republic of the Congo, Gabon, Iran, who is using the ones in turn that Iraq flew over during the Gulf War, Libya, and Morocco. South Africa and American companies also operate them as private companies, specifically Paramount Aerospace Systems, registered in South Africa, and Draken International and Textron, both of which are registered in the United States, who operate F1s for adversary training. Former operators include Ecuador, France, Greece, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Libya, Qatar, South Africa, and Spain. Overall specifications for the F1C include a crew of 1, a length of 15.3 meters, a wingspan of 8.4 meters, a height of 4.5 meters, 25 meters squared wing area, empty weight of 7,400 kilograms, gross weight of 10,900 kilograms, max takeoff weight of 16,200 kilograms, one SNECMA HR9K50 afterburning turbojet engine, serving up 49.03 kilonewtons thrust dry and 70.6 kilonewtons thrust with afterburner. Max speed is 2,338 kilometers per hour at 11,000 meters, or around Mach 2.2. Combat range is 425 kilometers in the high-low-high profile at Mach 0.75/Mach 0.88 with 14 250 kilogram bombs. Ferry range includes 3,300 kilometers with maximum external fuel, and endurance is 2 hours and 50 minutes on combat air patrol with 2 Super 530 missiles and a centerline drop tank. Service ceiling is 20,000 meters, rate of climb at 243 meters per second, and a thrust-to-weight ratio of 0.66. Armament includes 2 30mm depth of 553 cannons with 150 rounds per gun, 1 centerline pylon, 4 underwing, and 2 wingtip pylons with a capacity for 6,300 kilograms, with provisions to carry combinations of rockets, bombs, reconnaissance pods, or drop tanks, as well as Sidewinder or Matra missiles on the wingtip pylons, 2 R-530 or Super 530Fs under wing, 1 AM-39 Exocet anti-ship missile, or 2 AS-30L laser-guided missiles. So as you can see, France had immense export success for this project. As far as the stats for the mission goes, we actually got 2 MiG-21s destroyed. We killed 6 tanks and a squad of Iraqi infantry. We had 1 missile hit, 1 failed. Good hit percentage on our gun, relatively speaking, and on our bombs. But we did unfortunately get hit by by the gun of that tank. So that's I think that'll conclude us for today's mission. Sorry, there wasn't more action to go along with that. I wasn't expecting to be shot down so quickly, but next time will be what is next time? Oh, okay. So we're probably going to be doing the P3 Orion next time. But until then, thank you all for watching and stay tuned for next time and stay safe out there, and we'll see you then.